Okay, good to see everyone tonight. Looks like we got about the same crew as we always have. No really new faces, but we have the senior editor here from the Old Emera. Good to see you tonight, Amanda. So you signed to us tonight to cover this. No bigger events happening around the county, but glad to have you here, always. I would ask you if you would, if you have a cell phone on you, try to remember to turn it off, turn it down, or so you won't be embarrassed when some kind of song goes off or someone calls you and starts singing a song to you. So always good to see everyone. We have a pretty lengthy agenda tonight. We're going to try to hold the debate as little as we can so we don't overdo it, but we'll give everyone an opportunity to speak on any matter before the council. But that being said, we always want to say and pledge allegiance to our flag, so if you stand with me now, please do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess one of the most important freedoms we have in this country happens tomorrow. You're able to go out and cast your vote for whomever you think would do the best and hopefully run our cities, our counties, our states, our country the best. And because of what these soldiers, these veterans, and everyone preceding us have done, gives us that liberty to do that as of tomorrow starting at 6 a.m. So hopefully everyone will go out and cast your vote tomorrow. Stephanie, if you would call our roll, we'll try to get this meeting underway.
Trey,
Here.
Mary,
Here.
Leslie,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Elsie, here, Andrea,
Here.
Bill,
Here.
Debbie,
Here.
We have a full council. I'll now call the meeting to order. And will anyone like to entertain the motion to approve the agenda before you tonight, or would you like to add anything to the agenda or even delete something?
Second.
Motion made by Debbie, second by Leslie. Any discussion on the motion? I thought one of y'all might have said it's too long. Let's shorten it a little bit. But a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor of the motion, let me know. I'm saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, as we always announce to the general public so they don't think we're just moving through these next three items or so without discussion or oversight, the council has received this packet as of last Thursday afternoon. They received their minutes, their bills to be paid, and all the different types of things on the agenda. So if you've had a chance to look at your minutes, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved as presented.
I'll make a go. I'll make a motion to approve the
Motion
minutes.
to approve is made by Leslie Wright, seconded by Bill Lamline. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, you have your payables before you. All the bills that have been paid in the month of October. Do we have any questions or concerns about any of the bills that have been paid or to be paid? Entertain a motion that the bills be paid or not paid. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Debbie Pollard. Is there a second? Is that Andrea?
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrea. Second by Andrea S. Price. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Let's go to our financial reports. Well, I'm going to give them a little bit of time to think about it,
That's fine.
but I'll take your motion.
While they waiting, I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the financial before you? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We may be out here by 8 o'clock. Okay. Let's go to the bank accounts. I want to make sure you all receive your bank accounts, all the money in the bank accounts, different places, how it's being put to work. So any question on our bank accounts and where the money's being deposited? Total cash on hand across the city right now, total cash on hand for the public to know in all accounts is $9,264,312.43. We're as transparent as we can be, and that's what we have cash on hand. Some of that money is actually totally very restricted. It's only to be used for certain purposes, so it does not mean that we can just go spend it. It's restricted for such things as paying off the Oldham Reserve debt. And then there's a lot of different funds there that are make up the total account balance. So just because we have it does not mean we can just spend it at will. So who would like to make a motion to approve our bank accounts as of this date?
So move.
So motion made by Joe Davenport, second by Debbie Pollard. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, let's move on into the next item, public comment. Anyone here tonight, certainly welcome to come up and speak to the city council about just about any matter. We'll give you at least 4 minutes. If the council needs to continue the discussion, they will decide within themselves as whether the discussion is warranted to move forward and move on, or else just take your 4 minutes. Anyone here tonight to speak publicly on any matter that concerns you about our city? No one? We'll move on. Let's go to LaGrange Main Street report. Mrs. Sandy Fulks, our Main Street Director. Good evening. Speak into the microphone so people can hear you. I'm sorry.
There we go. It wasn't on.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Now you can hear me. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a recap from our October events. The Spirit of LaGrange Ghost Tours wrapped up on the 31st on Halloween. This year we had a total of 320 people who came on the tour. As you all know, all the funds from the Ghost Tours fund our facade grants to restore and renovate those buildings of historical significance in the community. So we will be awarding those funds to the applicants based on our approved guidelines. Also just wanted to remind everybody that if you want to do an application, those can be found on our website at lagrangemainstreet.com. Also, a quick recap of Halloween Mania on October 26th. It was from 11 to 3 on Main Street. Saw lots of little ghosts and goblins, a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, but some great turnout. We had over 625 entries in our door prize drawings, and the word is the Railroad Museum had over 700 visitors that day. So great success even with weather constraints. So felt really good about that. Moving into November, the Main Street Merchants meeting will be this Wednesday, November 6th, 8 a.m. at the City Place Conference Room. We'll also be in that meeting talking about Shop Small Saturday, which is November 30th nationally. We'll be launching a social media campaign promoting Shop Small, Shop Local, and we'll have Santa Claus on Main Street from 11 to 1 that day to get people in the holiday spirit. We'll have a lot of special things going on and pictures with Santa. That leads us right into Light Up LaGrange on December 7th from 3 to 9. The lighting ceremony will be at 6 o'clock. Of course, we'll have lots of entertainment and family activities, and of course, Santa coming in on the fire trucks. So we know that's always a big event. So that is our focus for November, moving into the holidays. Talking about meetings and projects a little bit, wanted to voice from the Main Street perspective our support of the golf cart ordinance that you all have been talking about. I know that will come along later this evening too, but from our perspective, I think that's going to allow, we're just thrilled. It's going to allow a lot of easier movement of visitors and locals during our events, maybe those who cannot walk distances, and relieve a little bit of parking anxiety for people who can't seem to find a parking place really close. I think that will be a great, great thing. We're just thrilled about it. cross that off my list. Also, just wanted to point out in reviewing the documents, it seems that a lot has been taken into consideration, a lot of input from the community, a lot of outside communities that have done this, and I applaud you all for all the work done on that and the research to make it flow really nicely and not be a concern for any of our residents. We're also in preparations for the LaGrange Arts Fest for the first weekend of June 2020. Seems like a long way out, but I know it'll be here before we know it. As we've said before, that's going to be a juried art, multiple day festival with a wide variety of artisans and activities and food and music and celebration of our town. Applications are available through Mercantile on Main and Jody Curry or on the Main Street media pages. So if you go to the website, you can grab that application as well. We're also doing ongoing work with the Oldham County Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development on business recruitment. We're stepping up the pace here, including personal visits from our board and our committee members to specific targeted businesses that we'd like to see come into our community. We're also launching a campaign online and on our website showcasing business and investment opportunities and available properties. So that'll be part of our revamp of social media and our websites and our presence at the first of the year. Just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into our social media analytics, our monthly page reach for September was 21,300 people. As of November 3rd, we have 6,240 Facebook followers, so that's up about 58. We have 1,370 Instagram followers, so that's up about 35, and 1,153 Twitter followers. So what questions do you all have for me? I'm trying to get through this so we can move along.
Sandy, I know Karen was keeping up with the virtual rail fan cams through, I don't know if you got any contact to find out how they're doing for as views or anything like that, or?
I do. I've actually reached out to them a little bit about doing some advertising and some scrolls along the bottom of that too. If I can get those numbers for you, Joe, and I can send them to everyone if you'd like.
Yeah, I hadn't had any contact with them since they were in, after, to see how many visitors we got or what it was. I mean,
Right.
I knew it was up to 170 countries, but I didn't know.
I
I
will
mean, the
find
chat
out for
line's
sure.
still going strong.
It is, and we get a lot of
Yeah, when-
response off of that and a lot of comments when we post something. We did the ghost tour. People saw the ghost tour going through. We got a lot of comments from that. And our little T-Rex,
See,
our
yeah, that's what I was going to
T-Rexes
say.
were a big hit.
That was a big hit on chat line, yeah.
That was a big hit on the chat line.
Is there any chance to have like a T-Rex gathering in the town? Because I know a lot of people I have the costume, a lot of people do, and it might be kind of a fun promotion to do
That'd be really
to
fun.
get
We
on
could
the
do
rail
a-
cam,
Yeah, a street party. What is it? A flash mob? A T-Rex flash mob.
something like that.
If we could time it right. I'll get those stats to you, Joe. If everyone would like them, I can send them to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the landscaping too. It looked great when I was down there on Saturday morning. So, a lot good turnout, a lot of help, and it was really looking fantastic. So,
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, we thought we'd have a couple hours in there to get that in, depending on how many people showed up. And I kept watching the clock, and I thought, well, I'll order pizza. And I walked around to ask everybody what kind of pizza they wanted. And they said, well, we only have 3 more plants to put in the ground. We'll just eat more donuts. So you think it looks good now. You wait till next year. It's going to look great. Maybe we'll have lots of monarch butterflies at that way station as well.
Anyone have any questions for Sandy? This certainly is your time to ask them. You want to talk about, we hear somewhat about our vacancies on Main Street. What's our strategy? What's our game plan? What are we targeting to go, maybe try to seek out? We have any of that going on?
We do. We've actually had quite a bit of interest in several of those buildings, specifically Copper Awning. It's exciting to see them taking another building in town and growing. We'd love to see that, but we'll get that spot full. We've had 4 people look at it and be interested so far. The comic book store, I believe we've had 3 people that I know of very interested in that. I don't know negotiation-wise where we're at with that. But again, part of our strategy here is to really keep working on that business recruitment. We talked about in our meeting about personal visits from our board member and committee members to specific businesses that we'd like to see that are very Main Street appropriate, Main Street friendly businesses that would complement what we've got existing on Main Street as well and build on that. So I think that's a really good way to go with that. Also launching a little different with an online campaign, promoting instead of an open building as it's awaiting a next opportunity. You know, what opportunities are there for an entrepreneur, someone who wants to open their own business or maybe wants to expand with an additional location, and targeting those folks to bring them in and get those businesses full. We're looking at some pop-up opportunities over the holidays too, because if anyone wants to see a good fourth quarter and finish out their year strong, it's a great time to do it with things like Light Up Grange and all of these events that we're doing over the holidays. So I think it'll be a win-win situation for all of us, but being strategic in how we're doing that and showcasing those properties and those opportunities for people.
I think one of the ideas and purposes for the mural that we placed down at the Marathon Station, especially for our folks coming off the interstate primarily, towns people as well, but I've had a lot of compliments on the mural that Prather Design did for us, but I was hopeful that would help our downtown by trying to capture those ones who come off the interstate maybe to get a bite to eat and might take a chance on driving up the hill, but hopefully soon our plans are to have that mural lit up. We're going to try to cast a light up on the wall to try to make it pretty at night, so hopefully it will be seen more so than just in the daytime hours.
Right.
So we may put a time clock on it, knock it down later into the evening so it doesn't actually work all night long, just not sure yet. But hopefully over time that will push people up the hill as we try to improve our 53 corridor and push them up into the downtown area. Not to say that all of Grange is not important, but I think our vibrancy of our downtown is very important regardless whether it's for our own people or for maybe even someday for companies to look to locate here in Oldham Reserve. I think they're going to check out the vibrancy, the beauty, the cleanliness of our downtown, so hopefully we can continue to do that.
Absolutely.
And many other things to come.
I know the list is so long, I could have a list like that, but that would take us way past 8 o'clock, and I'm not going to do that to y'all tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Sandy,
You're
for
welcome.
coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, that was item 8. Item 9, everyone, we've sort of stepped into a new idea here since we've been sitting here at the table, but I felt like it was certainly time to continue to recognize some of our volunteers through a process, through an idea, and I think we ought to recognize them while they're still actually walking and talking and moving and not wait till they're beyond that and now they get recognized. But I've always felt that volunteerism is important, and certainly it is in this particular area. Our first volunteer, if y'all remember, the first annual volunteer of this idea was Larry Chandler, who's done many things for this community by bringing the inmates out to work all across our city and do many things that probably had we had to have done them ourselves, they may not have gotten done, such as the train museum and doing all the train cars there, all the properties over here at the History Center. They were all totally redone by Larry Chandler and his inmates, and then they painted the house at 309 West Main. So those kind of folks are rare and hard to find who will give their time and effort and like for this community as way some of these folks have done. But tonight, I want to recognize a person whom I felt is very deserving of it, and that's Dr. Blake Hazelton. Dr. Hazelton is a person who served this community for the last number of years, many years, as school teacher, as athletic director, as anything you name within the school system, and eventually escalating and elevating to the area of superintendent of Oldham County Schools. And I bring this to you tonight because I was looking at some scrapbooks today at City Hall when I was mayor the first time, and it was about 35 years ago, and I swore Dr. Hazelton, he wasn't a doctor then, he is now, he's a doctor, but I swore him in as our parks chairman right at 35 years ago. And I want to say that in 35 years, and for you on the Parks Board who attended a Parks Board meeting earlier tonight, I don't think Dr. Hazelton has ever missed a meeting in 35 years of this Parks Board. We don't have a large park system, but we have a nice park system. And we've always been able to fund it at a level that you can't hardly believe that you could run a park system off what Dr. Hazelton has done, but he's done it and progressed the park system to now like 4 or 5 parks, a community center, a new park coming online, Grange Springs Park, and he's been there every step of the way. He's been there 35 years, and I was thinking today, his budget this year that this council passed was $35,000. So next year it may be $36,000, so he might get one additional $1,000 for another year of service. So, but each year of service has been, I guess, for him and his Parks Department, $1,000. So for anyone who can run a park system at $35,000, they ought to be applauded. So on behalf of this city council, Dr. Hazelton, if you'd come forward, I'd like to give you a couple items, please. Evening, Dr. Hazelton. On behalf of the city, I know you were asking for one of these a few weeks ago, wondering where you could get one of these. So I thought maybe we could get you one, and you thought they were really nice. So on behalf of the city council, I'd like to give you your fleece, nice flannel shirt, honorary community volunteer, Dr. Hazelton, and this honorary community volunteer award is given to Dr. Blake Hazelton to show our appreciation for 35 years of volunteerism to lead our city park system. The important contribution of your time, efforts, and dedications will always be a remarkable achievement. On behalf of our mayor, city council, and the citizens, we applaud you. So congratulations.
Thank you, Tom. Well, thank you, Mayor. I was in City Hall about 2 weeks ago, and he was trying to sell me a shirt, and so I commented if I was going to get anything at, I really wanted to buy one of these fleece jackets, and he said, well, you just have to wait on that. We don't have one for you yet. So I want to thank the City Council and certainly Mayor Black for the appointment 35 years ago, and also all the support we've received in the park system from several mayors who are sitting on City Council now and City Council members, and had a meeting earlier tonight at Mundo Park, and all 4 of the City Council members who have been involved with Parks Committee were there and have been regularly, and I think that really helps. And so it's been a very rewarding endeavor for me. This is, I hate to say it's been a hobby, but that's what it's been for me. I don't do anything else other than parks and some economic development, but it's been very rewarding, and you learn a lot. You get to work with good people and have great support, which we have from Public Works and Police Department and Utilities and all those guys. And so thank you for the recognition tonight. I think if I could say anything, we need more people to volunteer in this community. We got a lot of talent, and when you're sitting on committees or asked to do things, you see a lot of the same people doing them. And so what I would ask is we to continue to encourage people to step forward in your roles, and then also support them when they get there. And I think that you're certainly doing that as a city council, just with your engagement and involvement. I want to thank Stephanie and ask her to convey thanks to the staff at City Hall. They're always responsive and helpful. And then also Jim Irvin, who's here, would like to thank him for the many times that he's helped us with various projects, Amy, that we've been working on. So thank you very much. And the meeting was ahead of schedule, and now I put it probably a little bit behind. But in any way, thank you.
You're fine, thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Mayor, I'd like to say that I know you mentioned Dr. Hazelton's involvement with the parks over the years, but I think something you failed to mention was his involvement with economic development. And I know when I was mayor, he's a good sidekick to have, okay? I know sometimes I give him hell, but he's a good guy, and he's got the best interest of this city at heart. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill, for those comments, and let's move on. Item 10. This is a idea and a thought and a compassionate position that this council person has taken, and she feels like at this time in our period of a lot of issues going on in our local governments, our states, our country, that she just wanted to step up and do something in the way of our item number 10, and that's being a city that she would like to describe in a proclamation. So even though the proclamation is signed by myself, it's something that Andrea has come forth with, and she said she would like to do this on behalf of herself and this city. So Andrea, it's your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you like to read the final portion that you signed, and I'll read all the rest?
You just tell them that I signed it and I'm okay with it. Go right
Thank you.
ahead. You just tell them what this is all about.
Yes, absolutely. So this is coming on the heels of the Be Kind Oldham County movement. As a business owner, I hear the stories that are coming out of our community. I'm hearing about our bikers from Ironman who biked through our city and were so encouraged by seeing these signs and the ripple effects that this kindness has had. People returning shopping carts for other people and saying, well, I have one of those signs in my yard, so I need to be kind now. And you just don't ever know what one small act of kindness can do to encourage that in the remainder of our town. So I had the idea, and it was supported by the girls who started the kindness campaign, that we were going to, as a city, proclaim ourselves as the kindness capital of Kentucky, in the hopes of we set the tone here as a city, as a government. And with that said, I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas kindness is defined as a state of being able to understand that another perspective is as valid as one's own. Whereas kindness is also defined as a purposeful action, acting in accordance to treat another with respect despite any individual differences which may conflict with one's personal values. Whereas kindness means treating others as you would wish to be treated, speaking with temperance, honesty, and integrity, honoring the values of self as well as others, and acting for the benefit of the whole community, not just the individual. Whereas the mayor and city council of LaGrange, Kentucky recognize that kindness is a key component in ensuring a peaceful, positive, and prosperous community for our constituents. Whereas the mayor and the city council of LaGrange, Kentucky recognize the inherent kindness within our community and encourage initiatives promoting unity, peace, and prosperity within our city limits and beyond. Whereas Be Kind Oldham County, a grassroots kindness campaign launched by children Reagan and Rylan Richens, has improved the quality of life within the city of LaGrange, inspiring others to random acts of kindness which have encouraged and uplifted our citizens. Whereas the government, residents, and businesses of LaGrange shall unite with a kindness campaign to promote positive forward movement within our community for this generation and all the generations to come. Whereas this kindness campaign shall be a key component in increased tourism efforts to let the world know about the wonderful community of LaGrange, Kentucky. Therefore, let it be resolved that Mayor John Black proclaims the city of LaGrange as the kindness capital of Kentucky, and we encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of this title, to be grateful to those who are working to promote kindness within the city, and to find opportunities to give back to our community in some way, whether large or small. Thank you.
That's awesome, Andrea. And I think to get into the record, I'd like for us to place a motion on the table in a second to support this proclamation that Andrea has presented, and hopefully, as it begins here tonight with this, that we can find that for us who have kindness signs in our yard, but we aren't very kind all the time, then we will try to do better. But who would like to make that motion to enter it into the record?
Mayor, I would love to make the motion to accept the proclamation, the kindness proclamation for this city. And I would like to thank Andrea for her hard work in putting this together and the kindness that she shows every day. Thank you, Andrea.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Bill, it's second by Debbie Pollard. I'm sorry, Leslie, I think she beat you. And she had thirded, but there's motion made and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion, let this time let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, Andrea, and hopefully, as time goes on, we'll be building on that as we go forward, okay? Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, item 11, Donna Sabo is here tonight. Looks like she's been elected chairperson of our newest committee in LaGrange, Kentucky, our Tourism Committee.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Donna Sabo. LaGrange Tourism we had our first meeting on October 29th, and our first order of business was to elect officers. Tom Clemens is our treasurer. Arvine Sohan is our secretary.
Hear you in the back.
Do what?
I'd have to move over to the speak there somewhere.
That better?
I don't know, can you?
I need to lean down a little bit, Donna.
I don't think I've leaned down in.
Is it on, Amy?
Now it is.
Okay, it's on
Okay,
now.
it's on now. Can you hear me now?
Maybe it's voice
All right.
activated.
Okay.
I think you have to get over that side, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
All right. So anyway, for those who didn't hear, our first meeting for the LaGrange Tourism Board was on October 29th. Pretty much we were introduced to each other, 7 board members, and our first order of business was to elect the officers. I am the chairperson for the LaGrange Tourism Board. Tom Clemens is our treasurer, and Irvine Soho is our secretary. We had several discussions, and just wanted to give you an overview on some of the things we're working on. Our mission statement, the bylaws, the hiring of a director, and setting up the financial plan and budget. So those are the things we're working on. Initially, our focus will be on the arts, trains, and being the kindness capital of Kentucky. I'm adding that in. With, of course, the highest emphasis being on filling our hotel rooms. So we need to put all these tourism-related pieces together and bring people to this so cute town. One of the things that I'm working on for our next meeting is the list of brown signs that are in the city limits, so that we, that'll be part of the element to the tourism strategy to assist with all the tourism-related pieces. So I'm working on that. This past week, I mailed the information for the Kentucky SPGE filings. So once that's accepted, and I should know hopefully this next week, then we have 15 days to submit a budget. We have to file all the budgets. Any budget amendments will go through them. Our year-end actuals, and actually we'll have a yearly audit that will be filed with SPGE. This process right now is probably the most important piece in front of us. So we have to get this done, and hope as soon as we know something, I'll let you all know. So that's what we're working on. Our next meeting is going to be at Gustavo's in LaGrange on Tuesday, November the 19th. If anyone would like to join us. And just on a personal note, you were talking about the golf cart ordinance. I would definitely be in favor. Personally, I'd be in favor of seeing that in our town. I think that would be another tourism piece that we could possibly use in the future. Anyone have any questions? What time is your meeting? Oh, I'm sorry. It's
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. I didn't write that down. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say how much I enjoyed being at the first meeting and seeing this group of people that has been appointed. I think it's such a fantastic group, and I really look forward to seeing the things that you do in LaGrange. So thank you for
We're
serving.
excited. Thank you all.
Thank you, Donna, so much for chairing that committee. Okay, item 12, LaGrange Utilities Report. You have a financial report in your packets from LaGrange Utilities. Ted Chisholm's here with us tonight, so does anyone have any either questions about the financial of the commission itself, or any question for Ted or any persons here representing the utilities tonight? Roy Horton's here. For those who don't know Roy, he's sitting in front of Ted. He's, I believe, chairman of the Utility Commission. Roy's been in this city, I guess, as long as I have, all of our lives. So Roy's been here too. So we have Roy and Ted. Does anyone have any questions for either of them tonight about the operations of the Utility Commission? Okay, if not, I entertain a motion. We accept their report. Let's go ahead and get it in the record.
So moved.
Motion made by Elsie Carter, second by Leslie Wright. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Item 13, Workforce Readiness, Oldham County. Katie Bechtold is going to come up, I believe, first on this particular issue tonight. I'll let her do her introductions. But this discussion to the council and to the city and everyone, this is a continuation of a discussion that began probably 6 months ago at least, maybe longer. But it's a discussion on City of LaGrange working in concert with what was beginning of the Oldham County Community Foundation on try to help some people primarily in LaGrange, Kentucky, get employed, be employable, and be a productive citizen of our city. This is part of that effort. Travis Rice, who's standing here next to Katie, he will, I'm sure, elaborate more so on that. But Katie, welcome. Travis, welcome. Joanne Hepperman, welcome. So Katie, if you'd like to lead this off, and everyone received a letter, I think, from Katie in their packets, sort of reviewing what's to take place here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. After the mayor actually went over a lot of things that I was actually going to state.
Move over so everyone can hear you. There you go. See if you
Sorry. Can everybody-
speak louder so everyone,
Okay.
audience can hear you, please.
Thank you. In the packets on Thursday, I did put together a packet from myself in regards to a project that was presented to City Council, I think in the spring, in regards to a 3-year project that Travis Rice and Joanne Hepperman, who's sitting behind me, with the Oldham County Community Foundation, had put together to really primarily help residents in Oldham County and mainly in the city of LaGrange find gainful employment when some probably are struggling right now, as we probably all know people who are looking for employment. The opportunity that was brought to us that was asked by the city of LaGrange and primarily Oldham's Public Bus was the key component of this project was the transportation. And just quoting Travis, the project probably would not work without the help of the city of LaGrange and Oldham's Public Bus. Through the past summer and the spring, we've worked very hard at coming up with the logistics of the project to include a budget for how this project would launch and be able to carry over for the next 3 years. Travis and I and Joanne, along with the Kentucky Career Center, the Arvin Center, the United Way, am I forgetting anyone?
A lot, but that's a good start.
Okay, it's a good start. Have worked very hard at coming up with trying to pinpoint every aspect that could be covered by this project to make it go off without a hitch over the next 3 years. We sat down and put together a budget that I would like for the council to know is being fully funded by the foundation, mainly by a state grant.
Mainly, okay, sorry. And it's not coming at any expense to the city. That was something I did want everyone to know, that we do understand that we work on a budget, that Oldham Public Bus does, but this project would not work if it wasn't fully funded outside of the city, which thanks to Travis and the many people that he works with, have been able to accomplish this, this feat of funding the project. I particularly am in massive favor of this. I think that the Oldham Public Bus, even though it plays a key part, there's many parts to it. I think that if the city can give back and help our residents find employment, whether it's in the city of LaGrange or Buckner, where a lot of the offices right now and the businesses are wanting to help, if we can play a part in that, I think it would be a great satisfaction to us and make us look what a team player we are with these organizations to help that. I'm going to let Travis kind of piggyback off me and talk a little bit about where we're at. We are looking at launching the project this week, actually Thursday, November 7th, pending the approval of the City Council tonight. I'm going to switch with you.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Sure. And so, no better introduction than that. I mean, as you all know, because we were here back in the spring, this project has about a 15 or 16 month lifetime right now. And so this Thursday is a really big deal, and we're very excited about it. To Katie's very good point, the primary source of funding for the transportation component is coming from a $50,000 state grant towards your $82,000 budget. We have also raised private funds and private donations, public foundations and private foundations, and the fiscal court has put in $12,500 towards the project as well. Those funds are in the house, so to speak, so we are ready to go. We have had conference calls and so on. Katie participated, Mayor Black participated in our final conference call pre-launch, which was this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and we really are ready. So I'm mostly here to share enthusiasm and answer any questions you have about the project. So I'll just entertain questions right now, please.
Okay, any council person have a question for either Travis or Katie about this program and this effort that we'd like to be a part of or wish to be a part of?
Mayor, I sat down with Katie in her office, and we had a thorough discussion about it, and I had questions about far as what bus was going to be used, the maintenance on the buses, far as the person that was driving, if there was days that, I don't know what kind of schedule you got even for Thursday, how many people. I was questioning about how many people would be riding the two trips, or if there wasn't any, what was we going to do with the person that was going to drive the bus? If they came out to drive and there wasn't nobody there, how are we going to pay those? Is there going to be a minimum of hours from driving in to, if there wasn't anybody to pick up? So there was a lot of questions I had asked, and we had a thorough conversation on it. I think, what are you using, what is bus 12 or?
Bus 12, yes.
Bus 12 is being used. So that leaves us with, what is it, 95, 96?
Correct.
The buses we have.
Yes.
I don't know the mileage on bus 12, but if something happens, what do you do? I mean, what do we do if we have downtime on 12? If something happens to it, do you fill in with one of our new buses, 95 or 96, or all these questions that came up? There's a lot to think about. I'm not against it, but I'm just bringing these things forward that I had the discussion with Katie about. Been in office for 4 years with Katie and us knowing what we went through with the buses as far as maintenance, and you never know what's going to happen to them and the time we have with them. So, and you know, if that bus, I don't know, you know, in the time limit, if we go 3 years, or I know it can be, either party can do it, the contract within 60 days could be changed, you know, with any party, but, you know, where's the bus going from, where's 12 going from 3 years to now? What if that bus has to be replaced, or is there going to be any funding to to help a little bit at the month, maybe to set aside for a replacement of a bus. So, is that fair enough?
Yes.
I mean, that's the questions that I've came up with, so.
Great questions, Joe. That was one of the things when I was coming up with our budget, I had to think about very, closely and carefully, and think about not only the mileage that's going to be put on this bus. I had to figure out how many miles are going to go, daily when we actually do the Buckner work rider route versus traveling Thursdays to the Arvin Center and back for the training component of the program. I had to look at what the fuel was going to cost, and wondering, fuel costs are always rising. How do we estimate that? What about maintenance on a vehicle? We're not really putting a ton of miles on this vehicle over the 3 years total. I mean, I think I calculated roughly on, of course, give or take, we're looking at over a 3-year period, putting about 23,000 to 24,000 miles on this vehicle. Not that much when you break it down, but I still have to think into effect about depreciation of the vehicle. I have to think about maintenance because that bus is going to be on the road every day. So those were things that I did calculate into our budget for approval by Travis and the organization. I also looked at our driver and finding somebody who would commit to a 3-year project in a very unique hours. This person would have to come in Monday through Friday in the morning to take people to work out in the Buckner area, primarily places like Treehouse, eventually maybe Fast Line, the Kentucky Reformatory, things like that. And then also on Thursdays, when we take them to the Arvin Center in the middle of the day for their program, the classroom time and so forth, and having that same person come back and pick these people up. And that was, to me, one of the biggest struggles was finding that person who would work an hour in the morning and work an hour in the afternoon. So when thinking about that, and after talking to the mayor and so forth about when we came up with our budget, to be fair to someone, I wanted to at least pay them for a minimum of 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, whether they drove for 40 minutes and 40, to make it worth it for someone to have to come in and commit that type of a schedule. So that was what I put into the budget as well. We do have a driver currently who drives, who wanted to take this project on and has committed to this, and I'm really glad about that. I didn't know how hard that was going to be to find somebody, but he has committed and he is able to start, if approved, on the launch date of November 7th. So all of these things are the things that I worked into our budget, along with, I think there is a little bit of somewhat of a little cushion for things like unknowns that we know might come up or might not come up. But when it's all said and done at the end, when you look at 23,000 miles over 3 years, and I had to come up with like depreciation, there is like a calculation you have to use for that. We are getting money to put towards, if necessary, another bus. We are using right now our oldest bus because the other buses do run 12 hours a day on a 12-mile route. So I really wanted the buses logically to be the ones that are running the newest buses on that. Now this bus does have a new engine that we put in a year and a half ago. We've had no real issues with it. If something were to happen on a day, we do have that spare bus because we only do run the one bus a day. If we had to use the other bus, we could. But one of the things that I was appreciative of being put into the contract was the 60-day notice for all parties involved to be able to say, we've done this for a year, it might not be working for us. There are a lot of unknowns that we together have talked about that we don't know may come up. This is new, this is brand new. And though it's exciting, we also realize there could be issues that come up that we aren't thinking about right now. So with that clause in place, if we had to back out or had to come out of this, we have that option to do so, along with other parties that are involved in the project. Does that answer a little bit?
Travis, could you tell us and the public a little bit about the training component?
Yes, sir, Beach. Yeah, thank you. So, in fact, the original idea that we conceived in, 15 or so months ago was all about workforce readiness, with the notion that there's a population of citizens in our community who either lack the skills or lack access or just lack enough basic information about how to apply for a job, how to get a job, how to keep a job, how to behave on the job, that workforce readiness gap exists, and it's very real and frankly very measurable. There's census tract data that helps us identify not only the numbers, but where they are, which is primarily in our community, LaGrange and West LaGrange. And so we had a community forum held at City Place in November, 1 year ago, and at that community forum, everyone, including subject matter experts from the human service agencies who service our citizens, identified a common problem that exists, and that is a lot of these people, even if you could train them, lack public transportation. The reason I give you that context is because this really was a workforce readiness, not a transportation project from its beginning. But it quickly became a transportation problem when we realized that we have to solve that in order to give people access to workforce readiness training. Coincident with that, we were working with Matt Watkins and Allison Stolniker at Arvin Education Center. They were involved from the very first community forum. And Arvin was clearly the best home for this. They are clearly the right place, not only because they're an institution of education, but because they're educators, and because they actually have a mission to serve the community beyond the public school students. So it all kind of came together at Arvin, which is of course in Buckner and outside of the city of LaGrange. And so Joanne came up with a great idea, let's talk to Mayor Black. Mayor Black entertained the idea enough to at least explore it, then invited Katie in another meeting, and one thing leads to another, and we're actually solving the transportation problem vis-a-vis Oldham's public bus. The workforce, back to your original question, Beach, the workforce readiness training itself will be, there's a structured curriculum put together by Kentuckiana Works, an organization based in Louisville that is one of 8 such organizations around the state of Kentucky as part of the Kentucky Career Center. And Kentuckiana Works' primary mission, and these are my words, not theirs, it's really to help people help people become more employable and employed. Okay, so that's really what they do. And at the Community Foundation, we are not subject matter experts in public transportation, nor are we in workforce readiness. We are trying to find gaps that exist in the community. Where does the need exist? Build a solution around it and raise the money for it, and then hand it over to those subject matter experts like Kentuckiana Works, who will conduct these every Thursday workforce readiness training sessions for the next 3 years at the Arvin Education Center. So the project owner, if you will, once it executes, is actually Matt Watkins, the principal of Arvin Education Center. Then Kentuckiana Works will be the classroom educators. It's their curriculum they've created in conjunction with us. We've held employer forums. We've had one at Easton Westbrook, which was attended by 10 or 12 local employers in Buckner, who helped us define what those workforce readiness skills gaps are for their situations, and it's not the same for every employer. Construction employer has a different need than, say, a Treehouse Foods assembly line or factory line kind of employer. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, Beach, but the answer really is that the workforce readiness component was the original idea. It is probably the thing that actually solves the most family issues in the community, and transportation is the way we make it happen.
I think I've got a lot of notes here, but one thing I want to make sure that the council understands, anyone that goes to work in the Buckner area, they're not riding there on this $82,000. They're going to be paying us $1.50 per trip, per way. So if they ride down to the reformatory and there's a person that their parents, the kids go to Grange Elementary and they gave us a specific name, this would work great for this person needs to go to Grange Reformatory. That person on a trip down there, and if that's the only ride for that day, our bus driver is guaranteed 2 hours. He'll take that person to the reformatory, get $1.50 from him, drive back to LaGrange, get off his bus and go home. Mm-hmm. That's the way it's gonna work. Mm-hmm. So to think on anyone who's going to travel to any, because, this has a work component in it. It's just not workforce readiness at the Arvin Center. We're going to be running buses intertwined with this, not buses, a bus, and trying to actually make money over and above the 82 to cover our costs and make a little bit. Correct, Katie?
Correct. Yes.
I mean, yes, ma'am. So,
If I may add, this is less about your approval than it is important color to have around the project. As a project around workforce readiness, we have different things that we would look to measure success. And we're going to look to those and we're going to measure those things. And it has to do with how many people attend workforce readiness training and how many people then get jobs. That has less to do with public bus system. But there's another very important component to this project that evolved as we began working with you guys and figuring out that public transportation was a critical component of the project's success overall. And that is that this Monday through Friday bus route that gets added to Butner, from LaGrange to Butner and back, all by itself is an easy thing to measure success for, because whether or not someone attends workforce readiness training on Thursdays, and whether or not they even need the bus to get there to training, I think the most important component to your all's consideration is we're going to fund and provide something that does not exist today for people to have jobs in Buckner and live in LaGrange and pay $1.50, each way. And so to us, when we look at ways to measure success, I think that one is probably the more sure way of having success with our project. And that is workforce readiness. We're giving people the access to employment. So it's still mission accomplished from where we stand. So.
Do you foresee expanding it beyond just the soft skills of interviewing and networking to like how to drive a forklift and
Yes,
or
so
maybe do chemistry or?
Great question, Beach. And it is beyond the scope of our project, but it is not beyond the scope of Matt and his team's capabilities, right? So they look at it like, they being Arvin Education Center, look at it like, we're here and we have capabilities and we have the great potential. Now, we're not providing that, but if this program is successful, I think a lot of things could come from this. I think that Arvin becomes something more than it is today to our community. And I think there's no other organization in this community that has training in vocational areas like that, right? Right, so I think it has a great potential to grow beyond the scope of this project, and I know that attitudinally, that's where Matt's head is as well.
So, Katie, if this driver's taking people to Treehouse in the morning to go to work, they pull into Treehouse and let them off. What if there's other people at Treehouse say, well, why can't I ride that bus? How many passengers that bus hold?
12.
12? Mm-hmm. So what happens? I mean, I'm just maybe devil's advocate, but I mean, what goes on there? What if we fill that bus? What if?
A lot of what ifs.
You know what I'm
yes.
saying?
Mhm.
With the other residents or the other riders or whatever, say, how did you get a bus to ride from your house or from LaGrange pickup point? What, you gonna have certain pickup points?
One pickup point, yes.
One pickup point?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what happens then? What if there's 10 of his friends that say, well, I want to ride too?
Sure. And
I mean, I know they're paying $1.50, but
that was one of the questions that came up in the beginning that we went back and forth over, because at the time, we didn't know how many riders we would even be taking. I don't think right now we know exactly how many would be going on Thursday. What I do know
and
is...
is that?
I'm sorry?
I mean, you got Thursday?
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
Oh, you don't know if you got any at all Thursday or not?
I do not know yet.
Okay.
But there are a lot of potentials from what we talked about in the meeting today.
Right, yeah. Just to add a little.
Go ahead.
So how's these people getting notified that that's available through Travis? Are you?
Well, so may I?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
So there
I had
are
to-
several ways to answer that question. I'll start by saying, we consider these first few weeks to be kind of a soft launch. You may have noticed, we haven't done a great big promotional campaign yet. We actually plan to do that. We have all kinds of resources reaching out and contacting some of these families. Great example, LaGrange Elementary.
Okay.
So Heather Thomas and Graham Reynolds are very involved in this project.
Home well, yeah.
And the families they serve are largely the same families we want to serve.
Okay.
And they are all over this. So Heather informed me today they have 3 families that they've already talked to, had real conversations with. And I said, so will they be on the bus Thursday? I don't know the answer to that yet.
Sure.
So I guess it's 2 ways to answer your question. It's going to probably ramp up over time. So this Thursday is not an indicator of what the future holds. And how do we feed the system? Metro United Way, Erica Price is also integrally involved in this. She's kind of the identifier of people in the communities who have these needs. Kentuckiana Works themselves through the Kentucky Career Center. They actually have a database right now of, did she say 1,650 people in Oldham County who are registered as seeking employment through the Kentucky Career Center. So there are multiple ways that the feeder system will feed people. But I love your question because as much as that is still a problem, it's a good problem to have. If we're filling that bus, then
Sure.
we're doing good.
course,
And
yeah,
if the seats are taken, mission accomplished as well.
True.
Yeah.
But what we talked about was the training classes are free. So they're free, and I suppose the folks that sign up for it will get a little card or something. So it's first in, first in, first out. I mean, they'll get in free, and if there's any extra seats, we'll make some money, $1.50 for a ride.
Any other questions for either of these folks standing here? Please ask your questions, and, we're gonna ask for a vote here in a moment, so I'll just go ahead and say how this came about, as far as I'm concerned. I've told Travis and Joanne, who appeared at my office 7 or 8 months ago, there possibly could have been a mayor sitting there that said, that's not our mission, that's not what we're here for. We're here to do just for LaGrange only and not extend that. But I tell you what, there were rumors that back in the day when I became mayor that I was going to do away with the bus service as we know it. But I never said that, but I know today I will never say it, and I hope no one ever think about it, because it's unbelievably who depends on that bus every morning, every afternoon. I see them in our establishments around the town. They thank me for keeping the bus service intact. They need it. They can't do without it. And these types of folks just love this bus service, and it gives them opportunity to get to employment. It gets them opportunity to get to the doctor, to the hospital, to the Rollins Company, to McDonald's, to everywhere. And when Travis came to see me, I said, this might just be one more extension of what we're doing for the people who don't have the ability to have a vehicle to travel in, and maybe we could extend it one more time. Possibly, if this thing takes off the way it might take off, then I think at that point in time, Travis and his team, Oldham County Fiscal Court, we're all going to have to step up and say, maybe this is something we need much larger than LaGrange, Kentucky in Oldham County. It may go to that degree, because we might find these pockets of poverty, these pockets of area that people would like to be employable and would take a bus service from Crestwood to Buckner if they could get a job there and have transportation. So that's a longer thing out into the future. So I told Travis and Joanne, I said, you all could have might got turned away quick had someone else been sitting here, but I decided not to do that, and I went to Katie, and I feel like she's got these numbers covered to the best that she can based on the unknown. And we've got a clause in here based on the unknown. We have 60 days to escape. Either of us do, escape out of this situation, but we hope we don't have to do that. We want this thing to be successful, and we want the people, certainly in our city, finding a way to work. I understand Joe's concern, certainly. That's a concern of all of ours, but I think when that time comes, I will have to find, and we will have to find, the ability to keep it in place and keep it moving. Always, maintenance is a concern, but I think Katie has some of those maintenance numbers built into this budget. Anyway, I think it's if you don't have transportation, it's unbelievably hard to get anywhere. And we've got folks in this town that do not actually have transportation to get to and from work. And I was hoping that the council would give it a chance. If you haven't been to the Arvin Center, it's an unbelievable place that we have in our county to teach and help people, not only the students, but grown-ups, people who are in this situation and Matt Watkins and the school association, they've stepped up. We've been at meetings at the Career Center, and they're all on board. So, and believe me, folks, I put a lot of trust in Katie in this subject matter, and she hates for me to say this, but she's literally worried herself to death over this. She doesn't like for saying, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I think she's bought into it. She's trying her best to make it work for Travis and Joanne and this foundation idea that they've had, and they could have gone many different ways in their foundation request, but they chose to say through their seminars and through their open meetings, they said this is one area that we think we can help as a foundation. So I'll leave it at that. So if any council person has another question, concern, I'd be ready for someone to make a motion either way as to move this thing off the table tonight and move it into a beginning process. And we all pray and hope that it's a successful idea and we can make it happen and make it even greater than what we think it's going to be.
John, I'd like to make a motion to approve this workforce readiness, I don't know what we call it here, but to go forward with whatever the city needs to do to get this started.
And I'd like to second, I think it's a great idea. I appreciate all the work you've done on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, motion's been made by former Mayor Bill Lamline, second by Andrea Essen Price. Any further discussion on the motion before the council?
The only, there's not discussion, but really what you're authorizing, Bill, is to sign, for the mayor to sign this contract.
Well, I would
Service
like to
agreement.
change my motion then and make the motion for the mayor to sign the contract with who?
Actually, it's with Workforce Readiness.
With the Workforce Readiness.
Kentuckiana Works, I'm sorry.
Kentuckiana Works.
I only worked on the contract.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion before the council? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you so much,
Thank
Katie.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to item 14. We have introduction of first reading of ordinance 14-219. Since this is the first reading, does someone want to make a motion to introduce this, or is that
I
what
think
we're?
we just read it in and then.
Read it in?
And then,
Well, sometimes we do it different ways, but we have Jim Urban here and Amy Alvey to come up and brief the city council on what this ordinance pertains and what's included in it.
Read it first, or you want us to make it?
Well, I doubt we're going to read the whole thing.
Okay.
We might give a brief summation of it, but I don't believe we're going to read the whole thing. So,
Mayor, good evening, and council members. Jim Urban, I'm the Director of Planning and Development Services. Amy Alvey, Assistant Director. This is our last pass-through on revisions to the zoning ordinance, and we've been working on revisions probably for the past 3 years, and this particular set has been going on for about a year now. In April of this year, we had a public meeting where we brought forward some of the recommendations to the public, and some of the council members were at that meeting, and I appreciate your attendance. We go through the Study Review Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Planning Commission, and then take those, again, through a public hearing, and then ultimately the Study Review Committee passed these recommendations to the Planning Commission, and that was done in May of this year, and in August, we went to fiscal court. And you all are members of the Joint Planning Commission, so as a legislative body, as part of that Joint Planning Commission, along with Fiscal Court, LaGrange, Crestwood, and Pee Wee Valley, you all adopt these ordinances. So Fiscal Court adopted our recommendations, and then they immediately turned around and they made some revisions. So in September, we saw those revisions, and so these are the ones that we're bringing forward to the council. Really quickly, the topics are really, some of them are just changes to the text, changes to words that were inappropriate or unused, related to exemptions and modifications, building permits and fees, administration. We are adopting the APA Planner's Dictionary for any terms that we don't have in our own ordinance, definitions for loading area and vehicular use, capacity standards for cluster mailboxes, which is required by the USPS, landscape regulations and their applicability, residential care facilities. Seems like we're always changing the sign regulations, and yet we have some more revisions related to content removal, and agritourism buildings, lighting regulations, agricultural business district, and then distilleries, breweries, and barrel warehouses. So, Mayor, that's just a general overview, and certainly I or Amy can answer any questions. Typically, at your next council meeting, we're going to have the second reading, which will be a public hearing. We will certainly prepare a PowerPoint for that meeting and be here to.
Everyone should have received the documentation that Jim just briefly went over. So if you have any questions in advance of next month's meeting, you can contact staff. We'll be happy to sit down and go over any of that with you.
Could, for example, two council folks, or just two at a time, or if they choose to, come and see you all, and y'all try to clarify some of these things in this document?
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't want any committee meetings being held, but for them that have read through this and see all these terms and everything, they have to be familiar with what they're reading and understanding it, and you're all going to give them opportunity in the next 30 days, correct?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. What about, I know we're not into the discussion, but barrel warehouses, distilleries, is that one of the biggest additions to something like this at this time, since we don't have any of that on the record?
Sure, that is a big one. I'll have Amy explain that, but another one that's important is the content removal for sign regulations. There's been a case which really eliminated the ability that we used to have for regulating signs that were off premises, and in order to understand whether it was an off-premise sign, you actually had to read it. So when you read something, you can no longer do that. A lot of folks, and maybe you've all seen the David Pike training. He's been telling us for a couple of years now that any content-related sign regulations need to be out of our regulations, or they could be deemed, all of them could be deemed illegal. So that's a fairly big one. We never had any lighting regulations before, so that's a whole new category. It was something that we had to study real well, and Amy did a lot of research to come up with the lighting regulations. If you want to talk specifically about distilleries, we can tell you about that briefly.
Anyone have any questions for Jim or Amy tonight? If you do, just minor questions.
Amy's got a fistful of documents there. I hope you don't have to read all of them.
I will not lie and say my presentation will not be long at the next hearing, but that's why if we meet in advance or you email us questions, we can get a lot of those questions knocked out in advance.
This is the epitome of being prepared.
As usual.
As usual.
Okay, if not, we'll proceed with our public hearing next meeting. And you might want to hold on, you all, for the next item here possibly, whatever. Okay, thank you, Amy and Jim. Item 15, resolution.
We need to have the first reading.
What's that?
We need to make the first reading.
Need to make it.
I didn't read it yet.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm now about to prepare to read, and for summary, the first reading as required by the KRS of ordinance number 14, series 2019, which in summary is an ordinance adopting revisions and updates for certain sections of the existing Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. That is the first reading of the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Who introduced it?
Excuse me?
Who introduced it?
It is introduced by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor Craigmile.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to item 15, Resolution 3-219, a resolution for the City of Grange for zoning map amendment on East Main Street. Maybe some of you all will recall, or maybe some of you heard, but we did have a meeting a few months ago, and the meeting was about, and letters were sent to the neighboring properties that could and would be affected by this initiated zoning change on behalf of the City of LaGrange. I felt like, and by the folks who we sent a letter to, they came to the rail car one night and listened to Jim Urban and Amy, who were from the Planning Commission, and the purpose of the meeting was to ask their opinions and get comments from them as to whether they felt that they would join in and be a part of a zoning change on their properties on East Main Street. There are approximately 14 properties there that extend from Cedar Street on down to Mulberry Alley, and there's one house beyond Mulberry. All those in attendance that night, we felt, I think there were 9 out of the 14 who attended, and I believe my numbers are correct. I think all of those, 9 of those spoke in favor to try to move this process forward. What it would mean to the houses, it would mean that they would have a new zoning designation, which would, so maybe a new term in planning zoning rules and ideas, be a C-N neighborhood, a commercial dash neighborhood. Does not mean they would have to leave their neighborhood. They could stay there and live. They could operate a business in perhaps the front of their home. They could sell their property, would not have to then go through a zoning change, but be qualified to go ahead and operate a business there, such as a bookstore, dog grooming, whatever would come under the classification in the CN zoning. The representation, the new board of directors from the Railroad Museum, they were in attendance as well. They felt it would be a terrific idea to try to extend Main Street in a commercial type environment neighborhood to the east, because they felt that it would bring more people down that way, more so if in fact some of these properties could someday become a little eating cafe, a bookstore, a sign shop, or whatever. We do have a sign shop there in the neighborhood at the moment, being Manly Signs, but with her designated zoning of R2 or R zoning, she's not allowed to even put a sign out in front of her yard because of her present zoning, even though she operates a home occupation permit there. So I think it's those kind of things that maybe we could try to continue to allow to happen. One of their requests were, if in fact this were to go forward, they felt like maybe if we could, the city itself could petition the state transportation cabinet and ask for the first portion of what we know as Jericho Road down to approximately Mulberry Alley. We would take that piece of road into the city and let us control the ingress, the egress to those driveways as they come onto what I refer to as Jericho Road. So that's what you have for you tonight. It's a resolution to move this idea forward. If it were to move forward, we will have a community meeting again, which has to be done. Letters will be sent out to all the persons involved, plus neighbors within 500 feet of these actual houses that be to be rezoned. So if they have any public comment or any comment about it, we have a meeting scheduled on November the 13th at 6:30 here in this room for a public meeting, which is required by the Planning and Zoning Commission to go through a zoning change. So that's basically it. If the council has any questions or any concerns, Jim and Amy are here as to what could possibly go in those properties or not go in there. But otherwise, we have a resolution before you if we were to move in taking this forward to the Planning Commission for a public hearing.
John, when and where was that meeting? November 13th?
That meeting, if in fact it's needed, Leslie, will be right here at 6:30 on November 13th for the public meeting to, which the letters will go out this week to all these folks involved and plus the neighboring community within 500 feet of the affected properties. They will also get notified that they have a chance to come and voice themselves publicly.
Okay, thank you.
So is there anyone willing to make a motion to move this forward off the table, or?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made by Elsie Carter, second by Leslie Wright. Does any other city councilman have any questions or concerns or ideas or comments to either Jim, Amy, or myself about this matter and moving forward on it? None?
If it does move forward, it will go to the Planning Commission in November, and then we'll come to City Council in January.
So the city council, they come to planning commission for your all's body to be heard, and then the final decision, by listening to the people, the city council would have the right to either accept it or deny it at the city council table at a public hearing.
In January.
Okay, January.
Yes.
Yeah, legally, procedure-wise, the city, this resolution, you know, is an action by the city council, okay? So you guys are making the, you're resolving that you want to at least explore this zoning change. And what happens if you make this resolution, it's required. The Planning and Zoning Commission has to have a resolution from the city in order to take this step to even schedule the Planning Commission meeting and put this before the Planning Commission. Planning Commission will then hear arguments, make a recommendation as to what they think, and then it then goes back to us, and then you all make a decision whether to pass an ordinance changing the zoning map. And then I believe all 4 or 5 members of the Joint Planning Commission have to approve it, or just us?
Yeah.
Okay, so just us has to approve it, not Pewee Valley doesn't have to okay it, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
You're the legislative body that has the final say-so on zoning map amendments within the city limits.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion, a second. I felt too, you know, yes, we've had a little vacancy pop up in our downtown, but I think some of the council persons have said recently that as far as vibrancy in towns of our size, we've been very fortunate to keep our buildings full and vibrant, but I think sometimes turnover is not bad because now you get a few things you might want to seek and go after, so it's not all that bad. But I think too, if you travel these small towns and you look for tourism, that LaGrange downtown needs to be more than 1 or 2 blocks if we can add to that. And I thought that was a basis and a reason to try to extend the commercial opportunity to see perhaps if we could extend that Main Street idea and maybe we don't want to be a brown county, but we want to, well, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we need to probably have a little bit more opportunity with some things that might perhaps go in one of these little houses if that were to happen. So we have a motion, a second. Is there no further questions? I'm going to call for the question. No further comments by anyone? All those in favor of the motion, let me know. I'm saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you all. And like you say, you're going to have another chance at this at a public meeting of the city council, and we may hear different opinions that night and maybe even change your opinion, but we will be hearing it in January, y'all say? Okay? Secondly,
It's this November the 13th meeting in the council, We just come to the public hearing?
Yeah, we just come. It's not
And
our
y'all-
meeting.
Y'all present that, right?
The
Amy?
November 13th meeting is called a neighborhood meeting. So
Right.
if it was an individual person that is rezoning an individual lot, they're required to have a neighborhood meeting to get comments and answer questions from their neighbors of anyone that's within 500 feet. That's the November 13th meeting. Then we will take that information, it goes to the planning commission. The application based off this resolution tonight will go to the planning commission. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the date, the 26th, I believe it's the fourth Tuesday. And then we will present that information, the request on behalf of the city to the planning commission. They will recommend approval or denial to
Right.
city council. And then it will come back to city council in January, and then you all will vote whether or not to approve the zoning change from R2A to CN, commercial neighborhood.
So the planning and zoning could actually kill this if they did it.
No, they can recommend denial if they wanted to the legislative body, and the legislative body has the ultimate
But we have the
decision. They're
final say,
only
right?
recommending,
What I thought, yeah.
yes.
So what you've just authorized is for the mayor to fill out an
Yes,
application and sign to apply for this to.
Right.
Yes, and now we have to have the meeting with the community. There's about 140 people we have to notify that are within 500 feet of these 14 homes on East Main Street that will be rezoned. So they'll all come right here, and then we'll just have a public meeting and tell them what it's about. And then, then that will meet that component of the requirement of a community meeting first, and then they'll have the 26th, there'll be the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then it'll be back here.
Okay. Any more about the resolution itself from your
No,
standpoint?
that was,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
passed.
Thank you, Beach. Thank you, Amy, thank you, Jim. Okay, item 16 is Resolution 4-219, it's a resolution for the city of Grange to take over ownership and maintenance of a portion of Kentucky Highway 2853 Jericho Road. You have before your resolution, basically, what I've done here, or attempted to do, is had Corey Rusnick go down and measure from the point where the state begins to the point where we would like to take over the maintenance of that for a city-maintained thoroughfare. Maybe someday in the distant future, you could see us maybe extending some street lamps down in that second block beyond the ale house, where we get a little bit more feel for our downtown, and maybe put some of our street lamps down the road. Nothing today, but at least it would give us the opportunity to have the road within our jurisdictional purview, and we could do things such as lighting, maybe some safe crosswalks to get from the sidewalk over to the train museum, things like that. And then we'd also control, with planning and zoning, the ingress, the egress to the street from the front of these properties. So I think it makes sense if we control the street ourselves as to how we want to see this block developed. So this, I talked to the State Highway Transportation Cabinet at District 5, and they said, Mayor, we'll give you any street in Kentucky you want. You just write a resolution for it. And said, but we do have to have a resolution approved by the city council asking for the piece or section of road to be relinquished back to the city, and said, you get us a resolution, more than likely we'll do it for you. So that's what this resolution here is about tonight. So anyone want to make either a motion to accept or deny this resolution? This was one of the requests that the participants that night at the train car asked for, if we could get this piece of road into our city jurisdiction.
I'll make.
Motion
Seconded.
made by Leslie Wright to allow me to go ahead and request that the state of Kentucky give us this piece of road. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Trey Kamer. Thank you, Trey. Any discussion on the motion before the council?
I did have just a real small question. I attended that meeting. It's not a really long piece of road. You even have the measurements here in the resolution. What's the, I guess, estimated additional cost for the maintenance and upkeep? Do we have a number for that?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
Whenever Corey says it needs to be paved, we'll pave it. Or if he says it needs to be ditched, we'll ditch it. But I think by us having it in our jurisdiction, we can sort of deal with it the way we do with any city street in our street system. Correct, Corey?
I guess what I'm getting at is the street length isn't very long, so the maintenance on it is probably going to be minimal to our annual budget. It's more for the general public. We're not taking over miles of a roadway. It's a small portion.
Right. It's 1,000 feet.
Right.
1,000 feet. Okay, we have a
First,
motion.
first thing we need to do is put a stop sign at Cedar and and Jericho Road.
I think you can do that already, Mayor.
No,
because-
they put one up and actually, I don't know who put it up, but the state took it back down about 3 days later.
I didn't do it. Yeah, I know you did. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion before the council? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you so much. Everyone, and we again hope this proves to be a good move on our part. We hope and pray, and hopefully that's the way this will go. Item 17. Second read and public hearing of ordinance 12-219, an ordinance on property maintenance code. Beach,
Yeah,
Mr.
this'll
Craig might
be-
give
yeah.
me some advice from your council's table.
Well, I'll do the second reading and summary again, and then we can have our second and a public hearing after that. This is a second reading of ordinance number 13 of the 219 series, an ordinance relating to I'm sorry, I got them reversed here. This is ordinance number 12. This is the international property maintenance. Okay, this is the ordinance number 12, series 2019, an ordinance relating to adoption of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, which is, in essence, the adoption of a model uniform code for the maintenance of real estate and improvements to all buildings within the city limits of LaGrange regarding maintenance of the buildings, safety, standards for supplied utilities, facilities, physical structures, conditions essential to ensure the structures are safe, sanitary, fit for occupation and use, do not degrade the economic value of adjoining properties, and are fit for human occupancy and use, and for the demolition of such structures as providing for the issuance of permits, collection of fees, determination of liability, therefore, and the issuance of civil fines and remedial orders for violations by the Code Enforcement Board. And so that's a reading and summary of the proposed ordinance.
Okay, this is set for a public hearing tonight. I'm going to go with the way the council, I think, feels we should do. It's been done numerous different ways on how we go about this, but I believe this council is used to making a motion to go into a public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Leslie, second by Trey Kamer. Any discussion on the motion to go into public hearing? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed
You're opposed?
to go into hearing, right? Oh, no, I'm not to the
Public
hearing.
hearing.
Sorry, I jumped ahead.
Okay. Okay, so you're okay to go into public
I'm
hearing?
good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ignore me.
Okay. Okay, we're in, the public hearing process, as always, gives everyone the opportunity to speak either in support of or against, or any way you want to position yourself in any ordinance that comes before the council. This is a public hearing, so at this time, I'll call on staff. If you'd like to come forward, please, because you may have some questions coming at you. So please come up, Stephanie Winter. She's our code enforcement officer. She's the one that will be administering this code before the city. Stephanie has done a lot of work in this area, continues to work in this area, and it's Stephanie's, I guess, suggestion and idea that would give her more latitude to do some things in our city that presently she does not have. So welcome, Stephanie. So please brief the council on the intent of the code.
Okay, the intent of the property maintenance code is just that. It's property maintenance. It's to ensure safe, healthy environments for people to live in. It's living standards. It's not the structure of the building. It's whether the roof is leaking and it's not being repaired. It's whether there's a railing on the second floor and there's no banister, you know, for kids to fall off. It's basic living conditions. It's really, really spelled out, pretty detailed in very small. I mean, it's easy to understand, dry to read. But it is, you know, I get calls all the time from people saying, hey, you know, the big one's a roof leak. We've got a hole in the roof. Our landlord won't come and fix it. It's ruined the carpet. Now we've got mold growing. Help. This would give us the tools to help those people. It would also help with blight and like dilapidated buildings. If you drive through the city right now, there's a couple places where, I know there's one house that has the shutters on the front of their house are like bent and hanging down, and it looks really, really bad. But you know what? There's nothing we can do to tell them to fix the shutters on the front of your house. We just have to let it look bad. I've had calls from tenants at a really nice apartment complex that have said, my kitchen sink fell in, and it's been going like this for 2 months now, and I can't get the apartment manager to come fix the kitchen sink. So these are basic living conditions to ensure that you have hot and cold running water in your kitchen, hot and cold running water in your bathroom, to make sure you have a shower or you have a tub, make sure your toilet works, make sure your doors close and lock, make sure you have glass on the windows of your house. We have a house right now in the city that was being rented to tenants that did not have glass in the windows. There was nothing. There was no screen. There was no glass. It was the living spaces of the house. So the tenants had to go and put plastic up, do something, because they could not get their landlord to come fix the windows. So these are basic living conditions. Minimum standards. Nothing huge in here, just minimum standards.
What is the difference between this and, say, the Kentucky Building Code and the Kentucky Electrical Code and the Kentucky Fire Code? I mean, is it that, significant of
There are parts of this that do touch on some of that, as far as like smoke detectors, where they should be located throughout the houses. Outlets, what type of outlets should be in what type of rooms. That basic kind of stuff. But I think, I think Jim is still here, he could probably answer some of this. I think with the building codes and the electrical codes, a lot of that is the standards for when you're building a house or when you're remodeling things. That's how it should look.
And what is the problem with the current ordinance that you have?
We currently
the nuisance ordinance is basically all you've got, correct?
Well, we have a nuisance ordinance right now that covers trash in your front yard, or it covers the grass being taller than 12 inches. That's basic, or junk cars parked in your front yard. That's what our nuisance ordinance covers. We do currently have an ordinance for unsafe buildings that kind of covers a little bit of this, but there's not, the way it's worded, there's not really a good step-by-step instruction on how to resolve it. What it says to do is come before city council and let you guys decide. So there's no enforcement. There's nothing I can do to enforce it to make these people do anything, and it really doesn't cover a lot of things. It covers a few basic little things. It talks about fire protection, it talks about lights, it talks about minimum dwelling space requirements, but it doesn't touch on all of the things that you would need to live in.
Okay, Stephanie's here. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to the next item of the public hearing? No further questions for Stephanie at this time? Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Is anyone here tonight that is in opposition to the ordinance before the commission? That's in the public? Anyone in the public in opposition to the ordinance before the city council? No one here opposed to this, correct? Okay. That being said, anyone here tonight support this ordinance that's sitting in the public audience tonight? You're in support. Nobody supports it either. So you're not against it, you're not for it. That's good. Okay, as far as closing statements, you don't have a closing statement. You pretty much given your position on what this is about, so we don't need a closing statement. So, no further questions of the commission to anyone in the audience, so this time I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The public hearing's closed. So this council is, I think, customary to making a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Trey Kamer. Second by Debbie Pollard. Any discussion on closing it? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know. I'm saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Huh? You don't want to close the public hearing?
No, I said aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's just a
Put
little
your ears
late.
out, John.
All those in favor, let me know. I'm saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay. The ordinance is on the council's table for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 12-21-9.
I'll second that.
Okay, Leslie, I don't know who came first, but I'm gonna give it to Leslie. Motion made by former Mayor Bill Lamline, second by Leslie Wright. The item is on the table for discussion.
Mayor, the only thing I can say is we started this long ago. We went to a seminar at Kentucky League of Cities. The title of it was Bad. That's blighted and dilapidated, abandoned property, and it was a great seminar. So there was a lot of good information came out of that. We've had this information for a long time, and we even had Morgan to come down and explain it to us. So I think that we've been well versed on this. So just want to put my stamp on it.
Okay.
Of how much we've put into it, and I think how wonderful it is.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Thank you, former Mayor Joe, for your comments. Any further comments before we call for the question on the matter before the council? Yes, ma'am.
I believe that this is much too stringent on homeowners here in the city of LaGrange. I think that there are things in there that I have read, and I can name a few, that need to be changed. It needs to be vetted better before it's passed.
Okay, any one of those, would you be willing to cite any one of those to the code enforcement officers to get either a better clarification of how it will be handled, or you just assume it's going to be that way, there's not going to be any discretion to it, correct?
What do you mean about that?
Well,
Explain it.
on the issues you say that it's too stringent on a particular homeowner, such as, got any such as there?
A silly one is requiring screens on everybody's house. I went through the city today, and there are many homes who don't have screens on their windows.
Please come up, Stephanie Winther, and explain that to the audience and to the camera so people understand what screens on windows means or does not mean.
I know what it means, but yes, she needs to explain it.
Okay, the screens on the windows are for ventilation. They are not required on every window in every house. Each house has to have proper ventilation. If there's an air conditioning system in the house, you don't need screens on the windows. If there is no air conditioner and you have to have windows that open for ventilation, and they are required to have insect screens on them to protect from the insects coming in. But if you have air conditioning, then you're not required to have screens.
Now, we talked about that today, didn't we? And I was assuming and hoping that if someone who's renting a piece of property and they said, we have no air conditioning, we don't have any means of ventilation in this house, so the only thing we can do is open our windows, Stephanie Winther. But when we open our windows, there's no screens either, so bats and varmints and everything just fly in because we're trying to get some air in this place. This is what you're talking about, correct?
That is correct.
But you're also not talking about going to homeowners individually who own their own property who decide not to have screens on their windows, correct?
That's correct. We are not doing a door-to-door sweep on every house in the city. We are going to be complaint-driven on this ordinance. And if you don't want to put screens in your window, that's your choice. But if you're renting it out to someone, you have to provide them insect screens, or you have to provide them, proper ventilation.
Does that help you out, Mayor?
Help me out how?
and help you out in saying that a person who rents a piece of property and there's no air conditioning in it, that they should be entitled to a screen to get some air into their unit to keep everything else out of their unit that they don't want in their unit. Should the property owner at least give them a screen, at least?
No, they should not, they should move if they don't want to rent that house with no screens. I mean, this, I think it's a choice that you make, and if they want to put screens up, they could. I mean, we control so much of people's lives. It's almost like we're push-buttoning everyone, and I resent that for everybody, not just, I mean, not for me, but for everybody.
Is it okay for me to speak or not?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, one of the situations we had this summer, which was a really sad situation, we had a young couple with 2 young children who were talked into renting a house in our city by the landlord. And she gave them a cheap rent, didn't charge them a down payment, said, hey, you move in, do some of these repairs for me. I'm going to give you the paint so you can paint the outside of the house for me. That way you don't have to pay a down payment. This is all going to work out great. So this young couple with their 2 young children moved into this house, and it's probably one of the worst houses we have in LaGrange right now. I finally did with the unsafe building ordinance. You know, I kind of told her she can't rent this back out again until she makes some repairs. And I have pictures here with me, but it's the ceilings in all of the rooms were leaking. Paint was chipping off. This is the house that had...
You don't need to be revealing that house.
They had it was a 2-story house, and when you went up the stairs, the vent pipe for the heat was right there in the middle of the staircase when you went up, and it was not covered, contained, anything. They said, well, we have to tell the kids not to touch it because it gets hot. The railing, half of the balusters were missing from the railing, so they had to make sure the kids stay away. And the landlord did not feel that there was anything wrong. Again, it's a young couple. They don't have the money to hire an attorney. They don't have the money to get together for another down payment on another house, and they were completely taken advantage of, is really what happened. And we're trying to prevent that. We've got a really nice city with really nice houses, and we don't need landlords like that coming in and just trashing things and renting them to unsuspecting people.
They have eyes, don't they?
They have what?
They have eyes, don't they?
Again, they're a young couple.
Well,
They were
again, a young
easily
couple
taken-
should
they
have
were
eyes, and they
easily
should
taken
either have
advantage
parents
of.
or advice or don't do it. I mean, this is just my opinion.
Right, I
My
agree.
opinion is we just had a kindness ordinance, or not an ordinance, but a proclamation passed, and I think it would be very kind to help those people.
Yes.
I am very sympathetic to situations like that. And personally, in grad school, I was in a situation very similar to that in DC, and they do have these structures that are available. And under our current personnel, I don't think for 1 second that you or anybody else would abuse the power. But my issue with this ordinance is that it provides carte blanche for any city personnel to enter a private property if one complaint is given. There doesn't need to be proof of that complaint. It can be a complaint. And to me, that's a very murky violation of constitutional rights of your private property. And I think there are other avenues where we cannot be a judge, jury, and executioner of these conflicts between a renter and a landlord. And that's my concern.
Actually, the only person that can execute that is a law enforcement officer who's
Right, but
sworn to
based on
protect
one
the law,
complaint.
and they have to be certified inspector.
It does, but it's still based on one complaint without proof.
Well, we
And
still
you
have-
couldn't do that with, the police would not be able to do that. They would not be able to come in without a warrant of having some kind of proof or suspicion.
We still-
And that's just my concern, is that there's a certain level of, I guess, private property rights. And some of this, yes, is there, but I also think that there's other ordinances that exist for the external kind of city interest in these homes. And no, they don't always work, and I completely understand that and am sympathetic to that. But I don't think that we can overreach into an area that's not our
And everybody still
jurisdiction.
has a Fourth Amendment right for unlawful search and seizure. So that still comes into play. So as a homeowner, if somebody calls in on you and says, hey, this is what's going on in their house, and I knock on your door and you don't want to let me in, you don't have to let me in. It does give tenants rights that if they've got something going on in their house, they have the right to let me into their house so that I can photograph and see what's going on. The landlord cannot trump that. The landlord cannot say, no, you can't go in there. Or vice versa, the landlord cannot say, hey, go ahead and go on in that house. It has to be the tenant that gives that permission. So there is still Fourth Amendment rights. You know, we do take that very seriously, and we do follow that.
So is that how it works in, say, Louisville, Kentucky, the Department of Building and Housing? Do they have the ability to go on a complaint and enter a residence based on the tenant saying, I'd like for you to look at something? Because
Well, and I can't really speak for Louisville. Most cities, and I can't give all the examples, but most cities actually have this code tied into their rental property registration. And before you are allowed to even rent property, you have to have this inspected. You have to have this code, and you have to have a property inspection before you can rent your property out to make sure that it meets these minimum standards. I don't know if Louisville is one of those cities or not, but it would be the same anywhere. I mean, if you get called out, now the Oldham County does not have an ordinance like this, so we would be one of a kind here in Oldham County. But places that do have this, yes, if you're called out and you're given permission to go in by the person that lives there, then you do have that right to go in. Now, if you get in there and halfway through they say, okay, I'm done, you need to leave, then you need to leave. That's their right.
if the tenant invites you in, you do not have to notify the landlord that you're going into one of their properties, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any further discussion on this subject before the council? We have a motion and a second on the table. If no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call on this one. Okay, let's do a roll call. Stephanie Cooper, please. Got too many Stephanies going on.
Trey,
Yes. Yes.
Mary,
No.
Leslie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Elsie,
No.
Andrea,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Debbie.
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no.
Motion passes 6-2. Okay. Okay. Appreciate everyone's concern and debate on that subject. Let's move on to 18. Second reading, public hearing of ordinance 13-219, an ordinance relating to the use of golf carts on certain designated city streets and roadways.
Okay, this will be the reading and summary, second reading and summary of ordinance 13, 2019, an ordinance relating to the use of golf carts on certain designated city streets and roadways. And in summary, this is simply a ordinance that will allow the driving of approved golf carts that have been inspected by the county sheriff according to the requirements of KRS 189-286 with respect to requirements of the safety requirements of the vehicle itself. With the definition of a golf cart being any self-propelled vehicle designed for transportation of players or maintaining equipment on a golf course. As further defined in KRS 189-286, which is the state law that was recently updated this year as to the requirements. And the second main part of this ordinance is the authorized roads on which the vehicles can be operated, and it's an inclusive list as opposed to all-inclusive. So it only allows for the driving on about 40 or 50 streets in the city of Grange. No state or county highway crossings except at certain intersections, which specifically are listed on the third page of the attached agenda schedule there at Main Street. Basically traffic controlled intersections at North, South, Walnut, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th Streets you can cross Jefferson Street, which is a state-maintained highway. And so that's this list here, the permitted city streets, can be altered by resolution. So every time we want to add a street or so, the city council, rather than having to pass an ordinance and have two readings, you can change or amend the street listing by resolution at a meeting. That's the reading and summary, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Craig Mile. Entertain a motion for a public hearing, to go into public hearing on this subject.
Seconded.
Motion made by Leslie Rice, second by Trey Kamer. All those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, you've heard the reading of the ordinance, so the staff that's worked on this has been Corey Rusneck and Chief Collette. They're the ones who, I guess, took advice from the committee, this committee was looked at by a committee, by I think our Road Street Committee, not sure who the members of that were, but it has been through committee. I think they decided to name some streets and passageways to get to and from. So at this time, we're in public hearing. Anyone here tonight that opposes this ordinance before the city council? Anyone here in opposition? Nobody here opposed to it? Okay, anyone here tonight support this that would like to publicly announce their support? No? Okay, if no one supports it either, I guess I'll close the public hearing. So the public hearing's closed. Now I'll entertain a motion when it go back into regular session, or
So moved.
come out of public hearing. Motion made by Trey, second by Debbie Pollard. All those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the ordinance is within the council for their discussion.
Make a motion, ordinance 13, 2019 series.
You make a motion to approve it?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Second by former Mayor Lamline.
I actually had a question about it.
Okay,
I tried to spit
you
it
get it right now. We have a motion and a second.
It's open now for
Now it's time
questions.
for your question.
And I'm not sure if this would be addressed to us or who it would be addressed to, but when Sandy was giving her presentation, she mentioned that the golf carts would alleviate parking, and I'm just wondering, I looked through the ordinance again, and it may just be me not knowing, but where are golf carts allowed to park? If it would alleviate parking, it sounds to me like they wouldn't be able to park in a parking place. So where would a golf cart park if they're going into the city?
They're basically gonna park a lot of places, you know? They're gonna park in parking spaces, designated parking spaces, I'm sure.
Okay.
They'll probably pull up in someone's front yard. They'll pull up in someone's backyard. I was over in Madison a couple weeks ago, and they're pulling every which way. You know, they ride them, you know, the seniors over there love their golf carts. I talked to them personally. One guy mows yards in Madison. He just puts his golf cart on the back, mower on the back of his golf cart and goes mow some grass for people. So they do different things. But to answer your questions, Leslie, they're going to be parked in places that the police are not going to cite them, I'm sure, but they have to abide by our rules and regulations of traffic parking rules, I would say. You know, I just don't think, well, they just got to park legally in places that the police won't cite the person because they've got a driver's license and they can ticket them.
Okay, I
Or
was
put a
just,
ticket on their golf cart. Correct, Chief?
yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter?
I have a couple of questions. So on the second page of Exhibit A, is Lynn AL, is that Lynn Alley, I guess? It's towards the bottom of the second page of Exhibit A.
Where are you saying, Trey? Sorry.
Right about,
Elm?
I mean, I have a question about Elm since we're talking about that one too. Should that say Elm Street, or ST, I guess? Seems like some of them say ST, some of them actually spell it street. Some of them say alley, I'm assuming Lynn, AL is an alleyway.
Lynn. Where is that? Please
No,
come
he's
up.
talking about Elm. Is there an Elm Alley?
I think it's supposed to be Elm Street, right, I guess, but
Okay, we'll fix that.
Elm Street. And
Where's
his
Lynn Alley?
question also, where is Lynn Alley?
I believe it was identified in some of the mapping up in the courts area. We used a couple different maps, and they would identify some streets as
Right,
street,
yeah.
some as avenue. We tried to make it inclusive to that court area. I believe that was a marked alley within that corridor, which just allowed another pathway.
okay. I figured just because I've dealt with some of the alleyways before in the past, that the naming conventions aren't very consistent.
Correct. Depending on which online system or mapping we're going to,
Right.
like some streets are identified as avenue, street, some of the alleys were listed, some were not named alleys.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know where Lynn
It's just,
alleyway was.
Trey, it's just like Kentucky Avenue that I live on.
Yeah.
I've never changed it. I still go by Kentucky Avenue, but it's actually, it actually comes up in, if you, Google it, it actually comes up as Kentucky Street. That was changed, because there's a stone in, a yard down at, the end of Kentucky that actually says Kentucky Street. So, you know, I still get mail at Kentucky Avenue. I send everything out as Kentucky Avenue. Someone delivered wood to me, and he said it come up Kentucky Street.
Yeah.
So, but it's actually, we actually changed the sign. The sign at the end of Wood Springs actually says Kentucky Street, but we all still go with Kentucky Avenue.
And if it didn't get conveyed, probably should have brought it tonight, but at City Hall is the map that we drew a lot of these street names from, which has been color-coded, helps give you a visual of how these corridors run and how they link into the main street areas or to one of the park systems. It's basically the concept with some of these named streets.
I was told by an old-time resident, Bobby Hampton, that avenues run one way, like north and south, I'm not sure which, and streets run the other way. And that's how they differentiated between the two. In other words, I don't know which way the most run north and south, but that's the one that, it should be, all the ones that run north and south should be, say, avenue. I don't know.
Maury Perkinson settled this about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It is Kentucky Street.
Yeah, Maury had,
The
and
streets
we
must
actually
run
changed it, but
east and west.
it actually has to go to planning and zoning, I think, to get changed. And then through OCD, but, he wanted it, and he lives there at the end, and the stone's in his yard, so, it went, and it'd been Kentucky Avenue for years. I mean, there's no telling how long. Mary Ann lives on,
Streets run north and south,
she
it
knows
said.
how long it's been there. So I never
Avenues
put
run east
anything
and west.
Kentucky Street.
You sure?
My
Fifth-
mail still comes to
Fifth
Kentucky
Avenue?
Avenue.
This
anyway.
grouping of these streets, everyone, was put together, basically, if your subdivision could not meet the criteria of KRS 189 being a state highway out in front of your subdivision of 35 mile per hour or less, then looks like to me those streets were left off automatically as of tonight. The question I would have, and we've got Dr. Blake Hazelton sitting here, we have Glen Eagle subdivision, a golf course community, and I don't see any of those streets on this list because probably they were not considered because you're landlocked in Glen Eagles, cannot get out of there, so they did not make the cut. So I guess my question tonight is, do these streets need to be added?
I believe in the committee meetings, how we discussed that, we referred those to as island subdivisions. They have no direct, if the idea here was to allow golf cart travel to the main street corridor, or park systems within the city corridor, that these subdivisions that are somewhat isolated, that ordinance cannot empower a golf cart to operate on a state highway, period. They can only approve intersections. So we're sort of delving into an area the city government want to get into dictating what goes onto that subdivision that's not having a direct travel route to the downtown area. We referred to maybe allowing those subdivisions, their independent HOAs, to come up with an elective system, how much participation or agreement there is in that subdivision, then come to city council for adoption, where it's placed in your lap, so to speak, to determine if.
Well, Chief, does the, like a subdivision that's, I guess, road locked, I guess, you know, they can't, they're an island, I guess it would depend on whether they're city streets or private streets. If they're city streets, you and we still have jurisdiction, correct?
The way I'd interpret it is a city maintained or governed street.
Right.
And
But they could get in trouble if they're driving their golf carts on their roads, even if they do have an HOA.
the only thing that empowers, according to the statute, to a golf cart being operated on a street is what you're doing tonight or what you're considering. And that's a city or a local government unit approving golf cart travel with the specified equipment, with the sheriff's inspection, and the permitted authority sticker through that city unit, government unit, to allow that golf cart to operate. There's no ability for somebody just to decide to get on their golf cart in a subdivision and operate it. Technically, under the color of the law, they're in violation.
Well, my only point is, we have a golf cart course community, and typically people live in golf course communities are driving golf carts to and from the golf course. But as of this moment, I do not see any streets on there that fit that. So I'm just trying to take care of a known tonight and add Sunnydale Court to this resolution to make sure that if they go play golf, once this thing becomes law, then they're within the guidelines of the laws since they're on city streets.
In the subsection 10, and it may be a stretch or maybe something that needs to be expanded on under this KRS through state government, the provision of this section should not apply to golf cart that is not used on a public roadway except across a roadway while following a golf cart path on a golf course. You know, where does that golf course property end in the subdivision? Are the police going to be out seeking a legitimate golfer who's crossing a golf cart path in the subdivision? Probably not. Will we have, if it starts to spell out into other troubles in the subdivision of maybe.
Okay, so crossing the road seeking a golf cart path that leads to a golf course, they're exempted.
If you're going to that golf cart path.
Okay. That's the reason I guess that's the
That
reason they
doesn't
didn't-
answer the total subdivision question there, but that's sort of within a scope to look at is what is the legitimacy of that golf cart, and where's it going, and is it going to access a golf cart path?
Most likely it's going to the golf course.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further questions for the chief or anyone else at this time?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
So I often use the 4th Avenue and Jefferson Street intersection where these golf carts are permitted to cross. It's often hard to turn out of left or right in a car. So I would say the same thing at 3rd Avenue as well. So I'm not trying to be critical of anybody's enforcement of the speed, but it's I think it's something maybe we should be mindful of and just kind of take a look at. If I don't want somebody to have an accident in a golf cart because they're probably not going to walk away from that. So it's just a concern. I know we talked a lot about the First and Main Street crossing because there is a forced stop. So just more of a comment at this point.
It's understandable concern, and especially what's in the back of everyone's mind is now we have a stoplight, green light dynamic going with the traffic flow on Jefferson and 53 as well. So,
What's your opinion, Chief, on how you're going to get this out to the general public on what your east-west crossing plan? Because the way I understand, the only place you can cross at is Main Street to go east or west in the town, correct?
correct. I would strongly suggest as part of the permitting process, they're given a list of those approved streets, and it's incumbent upon those obtaining a permit to frequently check for any changes in those approved routes or intersection
Okay.
crossings.
Give them like a diagram, what's the route already chosen by
Correct.
this city council?
Correct.
And that's the street you're supposed to cross at, period, and that will be where it's to be done, right? Or else you could cite them.
Yes, and we'll update our city websites, government website, as well as the police department site to include any changes or
Okay.
adoptions that come later.
I do want to add just a little bit to my comment, and I guess maybe what I mean by monitor, and maybe after some time, if there is a large amount of golf carts going through these intersections, that we do consider possibly lowering the speed limit, just in light of even today's 71 accident. There were several, I'll call them visitors, going through LaGrange in their tractor trailers, and I was thankful that I had other ways of getting here instead of getting on the main road.
Another one just occurred as we're having this meeting. So,
Really?
yes,
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
interstate.
So
So we try to address the changes in traffic flows with the impacts of interstate closure with our staffing, and of course we do receive the complaints and try to respond to those areas immediately.
Chief, what is the speed limit on 146 going through the green light now?
There'll be 35.
To
should be
35
20.
coming?
Go from 45, 35, and what that marking should be.
Oh, if they're going, if they make the light, they're gonna be going 35 miles an hour right through
Right.
Second Street?
That's why these crossings, like I say, are a point of concern, and for those who choose to operate a golf cart, they're gonna have to be the judge of speed, and it's not without concern that,
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
because in the end, an impact for a motor vehicle versus a golf cart is probably not gonna have a very good outcome.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that. I was on the committee that, we all were together, putting the ordinance together, and it was my recommendation that we just use that First and Main crossing to go east-west, just because I know some people have tried to cross at Catlets, and,
It's dangerous.
since it's a 4-lane road. But we're also trying to open it up to our downtown district so that people have some ability to get around differently. So it's just kind of that fine balance. But I think safety is and was a concern putting it together and then going forward from here, I know.
Okay, we do have a motion, second. Are we finished discussing this? If so, all those favor the motion, let me know by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
You take a roll call?
No, I didn't hear any noes. I don't, no need for a roll call if you don't hear any noes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We just will encourage everyone to be safe. They're all going to have driver's license. Some places you do not have to have a driver's license, but however, in Kentucky you do. Madison, Indiana, you don't. So at least we're going a step farther than them by implementing KRS 189. Okay, we're just about to get through here, everyone. Standing committee reports. Anyone like to bring any committee report to the council? And I'll start with Trey. If you have any committee reports you'd like to speak to at this time, please do so.
Yes, so we'll have the Buildings, Budget, Finance, and Utilities Committee. We'll meet on November 20th at 5 o'clock. One of our main items is the continuation of city-owned properties and buildings. The other committee that I'm chair of is the Personnel Insurance Boards and Commissions Committee. We will meet on November 21st. It's a Thursday at 5 o'clock. Both of those locations will be at City Hall. And we have several items that we had to table from our last time that we will discuss in that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Trey.
Trey, I didn't hear the first meeting. When was it? I'm sorry.
The first one, it's Wednesday, November 20th.
November 20th?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any committees?
Yeah, the Business Committee, we also had a meeting this past month, and basically, we discussed a letter that we had received from a business person in town, and the consensus was there wasn't a whole lot we could do because she was talking about some state highway and some state issues. We also had further discussion on maybe some future annexations into the city. But that's way down the road, but we did bring that subject up. I would also like to schedule a meeting on November the 20th at 6 o'clock following Trey's meeting.
Which committee is this going to be,
It's
Mayor?
the Business Committee.
Okay. Okay, anyone else that's involved with the committee? So chairperson?
Both of these are at City Hall?
Yes. Okay, no
Mayor,
other,
the last Park and Recreations committee we had was follow up on the vision, mission of the community center and developing requests for proposals. So that request for proposal has been submitted to the Old Mayor by Dr. Hazelton. So the reason that is done, the contract for the community center expires December of this month.
okay.
This year.
So that has been submitted, that request, PRF has been, RFP has been submitted, so we'll see what we get out of that.
Then once that's, you're heard back from any respondents, you will then probably have a Parks Committee meeting? Is that what you're
Sure.
suggesting?
Deadline on that's November the 25th to get those proposals in. So they got till November the 25th for,
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
yes.
Item 20, LaGrange Historic District Guidelines Committee. Always ask Mary if you have anything to bring forward on that, Mary.
That will be meeting on the 12th at 6 p.m. We're currently still doing one final review in order to get it, so we can bring something before council.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Unfinished business. Anyone have any business that you'd like to continue to talk about that you consider as being unfinished? No one? Anyone want to bring up any new business ideas or items at this time? I know you're tired. Announcements. Anyone have any announcements you'd like to bring forward about anything that's happening that you want to announce to the public about? The only announcement I have is I have heard back from, I think, 6 of you all on a special meeting this Wednesday at 3 p.m. at the large conference room next door here. This is going to be a meeting that we've put together. It's primarily, I'm sorry, it's in the afternoon, but with the people involved, the older board representatives of Overland Grange Development Authority, the OR Partners being a partnership of our partner developer for Oldham Reserve, the need for you alls to understand the need for future monies for infrastructure costs related to sewers, roads, anything like that are sort of out there pending at the moment. I just felt this would be a good meeting for each of you all to fully understand what's going on at Oldham Reserve and anything that the older board and our developer partners would like to bring to your all's attention and ask questions about, because they're in the process of hopefully landing a business out there, and a business that will maybe take about 8 or 9 acres. And there's going to be some infrastructure needs involved and some requests made, and I just want this city council to be fully informed, so when you go out in the community, you can answer any questions that are posed before you, and you're fully informed of all of them. So that'll be this Wednesday, November 6th at 3 p.m., a special called meeting right next door in the large conference room of this fiscal court building. Okay? So that's really the only announcement I have. I think everything's going good. I hope everyone feels it is. Appreciate everything that Corey Rusneck and his works departments do. I appreciate everything that Chief Collette, Corey Adams, and the police department are doing. They remain short-handed at this time. It's just evidently tough this point in time to hire police officers. They not only guy or two short, there are also individuals we have presently that are hurt and are out of commission with bad ankles, bad knees, things like that. They've been caught up during some of their duties as law enforcement, and they're, as of Chief said today, they're even out of duty right now. So he's trying to stretch it everywhere he can to cover all shifts. So I appreciate Chief, Corey, what you're all doing, and thank you so much. I think that's Corey sitting back there, isn't it? Who is that? Who? Oh, Kyle. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, Mr. Taylor. Well, yeah, okay. I was going to say, what's he doing here tonight? But glad to have you, Kyle. Thank you. I always think that's Corey sitting back there. So if there's no further business to come before the council, I'll call for adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion by, is that Debbie down there? And Leslie's been the second one tonight, so all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thanks, everyone, for everything you do. Everyone's doing well and got all kinds of ideas going on.
Oh, yeah. You're not getting ready to die. Yeah, you should. I'll do a simple one for you. Keep it simple.
I'd see you next spring sometime.
You hibernate?
Yeah.
Yeah.